So could this be the week when Graham Brady gets the 54th letter of no confidence in the Prime Minister and a vote is triggered? Yesterday, Aaron Bell, MP for Newcastle-under-Lyme, is reported to have submitted his letter, and I'm delighted that he joins me in the studio now. Are the reports true?
Look, I've said the same to the Sunday Times. I said to my constituents that I believe it's an internal confidential process within the parliamentary party. It's like that for a reason. It's no secret I've been unhappy about aspects of a number 10 operation. You know, I was a Boris Johnson supporter. I voted Leave. I voted for him in the leadership election. And I'm a big supporter of the government's agenda, levelling up, the 35 million that's coming to Newcastle-under-Lyme. But I've got serious concerns about what's been going on at number 10 Downing Street, the sort of lax attitude to these sorts of things. And obviously the Prime Minister's role in that is open for question. That's what Sue Gray is going to report on. So I'm waiting to see what she says. But I have been very unhappy about some of the things coming out of number 10. And of course I rebelled on Owen Paterson as well. I was incredibly unhappy about that.
So much focus is on the Sue Gray, the Senior Civil Servants report, which we expect later this week. But help me understand, what could she say that would make it all okay? Because we all know the past.
Well, I mean, I do think it's a little bit unfair that so much is being, I don't know Sue Gray at all, but so much is being loaded onto one civil servant. And I don't expect her to come out and say, the Prime Minister should resign or the Prime Minister shouldn't resign. I expect her to put out the facts of what happened at these events. And I've heard explanations from, whips from the Prime Minister himself about their account of this sort of thing. And so I think really just having the facts out there will enable people to make a final decision. I think a lot of people have come to their own conclusions based on what people have said so far, but a proper account of the facts I think is a fair process to go through, and that's what I'm waiting for.
Now, your colleague William Ragg has claimed that some MPs were being blackmailed into supporting the Prime Minister. He said whips had threatened to withdraw funding from MPs' constituencies if they did not back Boris Johnson. Is that something you're familiar with?
No. I mean, I've had no threats made to me either personally or about funding. As I said, Newcastle-under-Lyme has had nearly £35 million through the Future High Streets funding and the Town Deal funding. That's going to transform our town centre. It's going to transform some of the most deprived wards in my constituency, and I'm, obviously I'm very glad to have got that. I went and lobbied for it with the department. It's now called Levelling Up Department. So I've never had any of that. When I rebelled on Owen Paterson, there was almost no pressure put on me at all. The whips asked me, can you support this? And I said, I can't. And they just said, well, okay then. So I've never had that kind of pressure at all. Obviously, I'm not doubting what William said. William's a very valued colleague. He's on the procedure committee with me. And I think he's standing up for people that he believes have had that experience, but it's not been my experience.
Okay, clear enough. Finally, I know you don't have a crystal ball. 54 letters. Do you reckon? Is it going to happen?
I've got no idea where we are with this at the moment. I mean, speaking to colleagues, I've got a good feel for my own intake, if you like, the 2019 MPs, but I've no idea what senior MPs are doing. There are obviously people on the backbenches who used to be cabinet ministers and are no longer cabinet ministers. They weren't happy. They might have backed Jeremy Hunt in the first place. But whether those people have put their letters in, whether they're waiting for Sue Gray, I don't know. It could happen this week. Obviously, it could happen. I think I think we must be somewhere 30 to 40 maybe or so at the moment. So it very much depends on how this report lands and how the Prime Minister responds to that report and in the statement he's promised to make.
The reason that you are here today is because we do a weekly constituency surgery, and right now we are just trying to make sure that we can get the link up to the constituent, because the reason why we do these is because they are examples of a constituent and an MP working together on a campaign. They are going to tell me in my ear as soon as we have Rebecca. But let me start by asking you how you met Rebecca.
Well, we've got a major problem in Newcastle-under-Lyme. We have the smelliest landfill in the whole country, but since records began, it's called Wally's Quarry. You're a former MP. You know that sometimes landfills go bad. You get an effect that might affect a ward or something like this. This has been affecting pretty much my entire constituency. At times, the odour has been reaching 3-4 miles across the constituency, and at its peak last sort of February, March. I went out and it was absolutely appalling. It was making me gag. I drove in. As soon as I got out of my car, I was gagging. That's how bad it was at its peak. And unfortunately, with the cold weather we've had recently, it's been getting back up to those levels again. Now, the Environment Agency have got 10 monitoring stations in the whole country, and we've got 4 of them ringed around Wally's Quarry. I think that tells you the level of severity that we have here. And I, as an MP, have been trying to represent my constituents and try and get this problem sorted, trying to put pressure on the Environment Agency, pressure on the operator. And this particular case with Rebecca is one of the most difficult ones I've had, in that her son, who's called Matthew, has got pre-existing respiratory conditions, which are being made much worse by the landfill fumes. And she has, very bravely got independent doctors to investigate this, explain the situation, and taken the Environment Agency to court, the High Court, where she won, and then she lost on the Court of Appeal, and now they're looking at going to the Supreme Court. Her story and others like it. I've had constituents with mental health problems which have been exacerbated by this. It's fundamental to being an MP that you go and stand up for your constituents when they're suffering.
And I want to, because you've raised this in Parliament a number of times, I want to ask you about the impact of that. But before I do, I just want to say, in the interest of transparency, that my husband has provided media advice to the company involved, although, of course, we haven't discussed the substance of this issue. So what has been the result when you have raised this in Parliament, and you've done so many, many times?
Yes, it was pretty much the first thing I did when I got it. The problem has always been there, and it was the first debate I secured in Parliament. I secured a debate in Westminster Hall back in 2020 to raise the issue before the Waste Minister. But then as the problem got a lot worse in the winter of 2020 to 2021, I was writing letters to everybody, the Environment Agency, to George Eustace, and saying we need to have some professional scientific monitoring here because this problem is getting worse. Eventually I secured that monitoring despite the Environment Agency initially refusing. I think they've been a little bit slow and complacent throughout. It's through pressure that I'm putting on that we've been able to get there.
And the spokesperson for Wally's Quarry told GB News that emissions from Wally's Quarry landfill fall well within the regulatory limits.
Well, they don't. There's different limits. There's limits for human health, and then there's limits for odour. And in the recent weeks, residents living on the Gallingale estate last week were subject to above the odour guidelines for over 50% of the time. They were suffering from landfill gas on the Gallingale View estate, which is where one of the monitoring stations is. Over 50% of the time was at a level that's going to cause inconvenience and annoyance. And obviously it's more than just an inconvenience and annoyance if you've got pre-existing conditions like my constituent Matthew Richards, like people who've got mental health conditions. It's really contributing to people's stress and anxiety.
I want to bring Becky in now, who joins us on the phone. Becky, hi and welcome to the show.
Hiya.
Just your family live half a mile away from the landfill site. Can you tell us what it's like?
It's absolutely horrific. The coughing, spluttering, choking. It's a daily thing. You can't open your doors, you can't open your windows. It's like living in a gas chamber, really.
And this, as your MP said, it's ended up with the Environment Agency in the courts. Just explain the impact, because first case sided with you guys. The second sided with the Environment Agency. How do things like that make you feel?
It angers me really because, at the end of the day, they're a government body. They should be protecting people, not fighting against us. They should be helping us and get all these admissions gone.
Erin, I'll come back to you, Rebecca. We're really pleased that you are with us. The company say that they have ongoing construction of a new shell protective coating that covers the landfill sites, prevents emissions. Basically, their point is that they're acting.
Well, they're acting under direction from the Environment Agency, again, through the pressure that I put on. There have been new gas wells drilled into the landfill. There's been this posi shell capping put on, and they're now capturing about twice as much gas as they were early in the year. But the problem is the stink's still there. And then, of course, on top of that, we've now got the Environment Agency announced shortly before Christmas they're conducting a criminal investigation into Wally's Quarry Limited. And obviously I can't prejudice that, and I don't know what's going to happen there. But it does worry me that we don't know what necessarily has gone into the landfill in the past.
Rebecca, what made you decide to get in touch with your Member of Parliament? Have you done so before?
I emailed Aaron, yes. I haven't got in touch with him before in the past, no, but I emailed him and just explained that my little boy had been diagnosed with toxic fumes.
How is your little boy?
He's not well at all. You know, he's an ailer since Christmas. He's an ailer. He's been using it lots and lots.
Would you recommend, Becky, part of the reason we do this is because we want to show the different sides to what MPs do in their work. Did you ever think you were the sort of person that would get in touch with their Member of Parliament?
No, never. You know, I've never had a reason to, and I never thought I would have to.
Where next for the campaign, Aaron?
Well, so, I mean, firstly, to pay tribute to everything Becky's done, her brother Tom has also been a huge part of the Stop the Stink campaign that's been going on locally. I'm going to keep putting pressure on the Environment Agency, the operator. I'm going to try and secure further debates in Parliament. I've spoken underprivileged in Parliament a few times about what's going on there. We won't repeat that on air for obvious reasons. We need to get a resolution to this soon. We need to find out where that criminal investigation is going.
So I'm not aware of this criminal investigation that you refer to.
So sorry. The Environment Agency announced before Christmas that they were investigating allegations of potential criminal activity at sites.
There's not a criminal investigation; it's an allegation.
Well, they've formally launched an investigation. Just to be clear.
Fine. We will have a quote from the Environment Agency coming up. This may end up in the Supreme Court. That's yours and Rebecca's net. It's Rebecca. In fact, let me talk to Rebecca. Rebecca, it's your lawyers that want to pursue this in the Supreme Court. That's right. I understand.
Yeah, the papers went in on Friday to the Supreme Court.
And do you have an idea of a timescale? Because it must be, it's a very big thing to do. It must bring with it stresses and strains.
All I know is it's gone in as a matter of urgency. So we're hoping not wait too long.
I mean, the Supreme Court case, as we're not lawyers, as MPs, we can't give constituents legal advice, and Rebecca's had very, very good legal advice throughout. And the first judgment was, a real David versus Goliath moment, I thought, because it's the first time that a judge has found that people's human rights can be affected and that the regulators can be failing on that. The regulator obviously appealed because that would change the underpinning of our regulation completely. So it's now turning on points of law, and I'm not a lawyer, but that's exactly why I hope it does go to the Supreme Court. I don't know if the Supreme Court have said they'll hear it or not yet. But putting all the court case aside, the fundamental problem here is to stop the stink, and the way we do that is through the Environment Agency doing their job and through the operator cleaning up their act and cleaning up their site.
Aaron Bell, thank you for coming in today to talk to us about your campaign. Thank you to Rebecca for bringing us the personal testimony that you brought. Now, a spokesperson for the Environment Agency said that Wally's Quarry is responsible for the emissions. They added that the Environment Agency has required and continues to require Wally's Quarry Limited to make substantial changes to the way in which it operates. The Environment Agency remains determined to tackle the problems at Wally's Quarry. A spokesperson for Wally's Quarry told us that it is clear from a full and independent survey recently carried out that emissions from the Wally Quarry's limited landfill fall well within the regulatory limits of those expected at such sites. Wally's Quarry says this independent survey was requested by the Environment Agency. It is now with the Environment Agency, although we note it is not chosen to publicise its comments. The statement goes on. Equally, Wally's Quarry Limited has never received or disposed of hazardous waste in contravention of any regulations. Any such allegations or implications, however framed, are baseless and wrong. In the light of all the evidence, the company says Wally's Quarry Limited is fully confident in its position relating to legal actions in which it finds itself involved. This includes the action brought against the Environment Agency by Ms Currie in the sad case of her son, Matthew. We have every sympathy with the health issues the family are facing, but there is no evidence to suggest that the operations of the landfill are in any way linked to his condition. Thank you for bearing with us. It's important.